Greetings, greetings. I do believe we are live. I hope everyone is having a great summer. This is going to be a very short video, I believe. So long ago, somehow I have no recollection why or specifically when I stumbled upon this writing within this body of work. The body of work in question is known as Poor Richard's Almanack or Richard Saunders' Almanack. Um, these are some of the earliest regular periodical publications of colonial America. I'm by no means an expert on any of this, so if there's more to be said about this than I'm going to say, then all apologies. But this almanac was basically satirical publication done by Ben Franklin, as far as I can tell, written exclusively by Ben Franklin. And it sort of reminds me of Mad Magazine because everything in it is just full of silliness under the guise of being a farmer's almanac. So something that stood out to me, however, myself being a bit of a language nerd, was thumbing through some of these ancient tomes here. We can see the general, it's an almanac, and reading these things, it's actually fairly amusing if you read some of this stuff. So we get down to basically he gives a summary of the eclipses of this year, and let's see what he has to say. It says, there are so many invisible eclipses this year that I fear not unjustly our pockets will suffer inundation, be full empty, and are feeling at a loss. During the first visible eclipse, Saturn is retrograde, for which reason the crabs will go sidelong, and the rope makers backwards. The belly will wag before, and the air shall sit down first. Mercury will have his share in these affairs, and so confound the speech of the people, and that when a Pennsylvanian would say panther, he shall say panther. And when a New Yorker thinks to say this, he shall say this. And when the people in New England and Cape May will not be able to say cow for their lives, but they will be forced to say cow by a certain involuntary twist of the root of their tongues. No Connecticut man nor Marylander will be able to open his mouth this year, but sir shall be the first or last syllable he pronounces, and sometimes both. Brutes shall speak in many places, and there will be above 27 irregular verbs made this year. If grammar don't interpose, who can help these misfortunes? So that's the snippet here on the eclipses. Not sure if you can actually see my mouse cursor or not, but it's the lower part of the page. So clearly he starts going off about the way people are talking in Pennsylvania, New York, New England, Cape May area, Connecticut, and Maryland, which is interesting, me being a Marylander myself. So, yeah, so what this seems to imply to me is that very clearly what we see today as the stereotypical accents have been there from the earliest of times. Now, one interesting thing that I'll note here is he's talking about a Pennsylvanian will say panther instead of panther or painter. Now, to me, this strikes me a bit more of a Western kind of a Tennessee accent. However, Tennessee didn't exist yet, so this seems to be sort of the remnant of this accent, which, as we is from what it seems to me, migrated westward with the states and with the people, obviously, because that's exactly what states and nations and colonies are. They're people. So yeah, so we have Pennsylvanians talking like our stereotypical, Tennesseans, Panther instead of Panther, or I'm not sure what Ben Franklin's accent would have been like. Probably would have been something like the well, I don't know. I'm not even going to try to. Uh, and yeah, the New Yorker. Now, New York at the time, I mean, it had been there already for many generations, along with generations of people and lots of different cultures. Lots of Dutch, etc., British. And one thing, speaking of accents, something that I noticed. This is completely random. I went to church with a man from Holland once, and I didn't know he was from Holland when he was talking. He was giving a sermon once. He was the guest pastor at one point, and as he's speaking, I had no idea. I thought he just had a really heavy New York accent. He actually reminded me of Christopher Walken, the way he talked, and that was just interesting. And then I was like, oh, he's from Holland, okay. And then here New York was once New Amsterdam, etc., etc. So just an interesting tidbit there. And yeah, a New Yorker thinks to say this, but he shall say dis. This, hey Tony, hey, we gonna do this over here? Oh, hey, forget about like it. Clearly, this was happening. So I mean, I don't know exactly who was saying this stuff. Was this the common man? Clearly, this was being spoken of in jest, or as kind of a novelty. So perhaps this was just kind of the common parlance, because I know we have poetry, so we have lots and lots of writings from the day. We might even have grammar books. I'm sure we do. So very likely there are sources that we can look at specifically discussing the grammar at the time. However, of course, as in most cultures, the things spoken, or I mean, the things taught in these books are going to be the most proper form possible. Even like in ancient, classical Romans, like I don't think hardly any of them spoke the way most people think of classical Latin. All that stuff was for the scholars. So yeah, so we have New Yorkers saying this. Hey, yo, Adrian, well, that's Philadelphia. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so people of New England and Cape May will not be able to say cow for their lives, but be forced to say cow. I mean, when I first read that, I wasn't quite sure of what I was reading, but it was when I got there, I couldn't help but laugh. This cow, because it's. I mean, that's not even really how people today from Pennsylvania say it per se, but clearly, because honestly, if I'm going to try to estimate the typical New England accent at the time, the word cow was probably pronounced more like cow. So cow, as we can see already, we have what we know today is kind of the more East Coastern, or maybe more. Well, I don't know what that particular sound would be called. There's the Mid Atlantic accent and the New England accent, but cow to me just sounds just straight, just typical American, as it says here, by a certain involuntary twist of the tongue. And so yeah, so also being a Marylander, this part kind of got me at first. Will not be a Marylander or Connecticut man will not be able to open his mouth this year, but sir, shall be the first or last syllable he pronounces, and sometimes both. However, when I thought about this, and I think a remnant of this still exists. I had a teacher, and whenever he would kind of get really snarky, he would say sir a lot. However, what I think he was doing was mimicking the way he remembers his elders saying it. Now, this teacher was a black dude, and I've actually heard other black dudes speaking like this. I think I've probably heard white dudes say it, but it struck me more that black people at least around Baltimore, will speak like this, but not commonly. Usually older gentlemen, that are just simply being polite. And what it sounds like, sir, is that I'm going to open a door for you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Like, that's it. Now, just so me saying that black people versus white people are saying like that really means nothing. It's just how I've experienced that now. But my point is that it still exists. I've heard it, and it makes total sense that this is kind of a that form of speaking, sir, sir. Okay, sir, because I have absolutely heard people speak like that, and it, whether or not that's strictly a Maryland or Connecticut thing. However, I do think that's what it's talking about. So it's interesting just to know that that in itself is still a remnant of some sort of verbal little verbal tidbit that has been existing there since at least 1739. And then, of course, we see 7 and 20 irregular verbs made this year if grammar don't interpose. Now, Benjamin Franklin, for his faults, I can't say that he wasn't funny for itself. So that's it. It's interesting tidbits about the American accent. I haven't really seen much on this. I've seen pretty much nothing discussing this slice of history here in regards to the accents, because this right here is to me it looks like a perfect linguistical, dialectical, lexiconical snapshot of the way people were speaking back then. It's a very kind of candid look because he's clearly going into kind of more of the common folk. Which I mean, for all I know, this almanac is full of that. I would love to sit and read the bunch of these things. What I have read, it's quite hysterical. I mean, I can't say Franklin wasn't a genius. I mean, come on, the guy invented lightning. I mean, anyway, that's all for now. I hope you have a great time, and God bless you. Peace.